This meeting of the Board of Education is now called to order. Please stand and join us in pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everybody to our meeting tonight, and you probably noticed that Trustee Rathburn is absent this evening, sends his regrets. We'll get started by approving our agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda as presented?
No, sir.
Is there a motion, please, to approve the agenda?
Yes, Mr. President. Motion offered to the Board of Education approve the agenda as printed.
Thank you, Keith. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Celeste. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes, and we'll move forward with the agenda in our packet. And the first report is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Randy. We're going to start with the bond project update. So, Mr. Edwards will do the honors on that.
Thank you, Superintendent Beeline, as well as members of the Board of Education. As always, I'd like to provide an update on some of our current projects, with finishing out our 2015-2019 dollars, as well as our 2021 elementary bond. Storage barns, we're still in the process of building the 2 pole barns at the northern campus. The structure and roofs of both barns have been completed. We anticipate the framing and siding to be completed by early November, electrical work by mid-October. I'm sorry, I said November. We anticipate framing and siding to be completed by early October, electrical by mid-October, and then doors, gutters, downspouts by late October. The existing storage building should be removed from the site and that area restored by early November. The auditorium refresh, the installation of stage floors of both auditoriums have been completed. Based on our current material lead times for AV equipment, lighting, and controls, we expect what's called floor boxes to be installed by November. The projectors should be installed by January 2023. Then the lighting fixtures and controls to be completed by June of 2023. All elements of both auditoriums will remain fully operational until the new equipment arrives. And then lastly, related to $15 and $19, tomorrow we will start the bid process for 4 projects. The first project is the Curtin wall at Portage Norton High School, which is essentially a facelift to the exterior of the building with the goal of having the school match or blend in with the newer facilities on that campus. The second project is the curtain dividers at the doghouse and stable. This is what divides the practice courts from each other. The third project is a new parking lot at the Northern AEF. Now, all 3 of those projects that I've mentioned are on the list from the board's unallocated contingency. And then the fourth project is an irrigation system at Centennial Park. We've had a difficult time maintaining the grass between the 2 buildings, and we've experienced weeds growing. The irrigation system would help the grass grow properly and minimize the weeds, and also beautify the campus. And we hope to bring a recommendation to the board at the October 10th meeting. And then moving to our 2021 dollars, this past Friday, we held our second of 7 what we call design development meetings. We reviewed the updated imagery of the building, interior and exterior, for both Central Elementary and Haverhill. The team was able to touch some samples of materials of the exterior of the buildings and view visuals of the concepts for the interior. This Friday, Kelly Jensenius and I, along with representatives from Philadelphia International and Tower, we will spend about a half day at both schools for what we call student and staff engagement sessions. This will allow members of the building advisory teams to provide us with input around some of the key areas that we have identified in our designs. We also plan to engage a classroom of students at the lower L, grades 1 or 2, and at the upper L, grades 3 or 4, at both elementary schools, to gather input on some of the designs from the student perspective. We want our buildings to feel like it is something with student staff input, but also something that our students would enjoy. At the October 10th board meeting, we plan to present the most up-to-date version of the designs to share the direction we're headed with the schools. We were able to have a lengthy meeting on Friday. It went a little longer than normal, but it was great to see our ideas come to fruition as it is in the development stage. So that concludes my report related to our bond projects. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Johnny, you got a lot going on.
There's a lot going on here in Portage, and it's a good thing too.
Johnny, at that meeting on Friday, we also talked about bringing back, once we refine a little further, the samples of some of the materials that would be used on the exterior of the buildings.
Yes, so Friday was our first opportunity to kind of get a touch and feel and look at some of the various options we have. Tower Painter and Philadelphia International did a great job kind of giving us a buffet of things along with some recommendations they had. And what we would like to do is at our October 10th meeting is bring the direction we're headed with some of our brick choices and color schemes for the exterior of the building. We definitely want to stick to our guiding principles of making sure these buildings are a part of the neighborhoods in which they reside in. And so we feel as though, I know you've seen some concepts of them, but they've gone a step further. The Central Elementary design is essentially catered to blend in with the existing campus of Central High School as well as Central Middle School. Then the Haverhill design is slightly different and is designed to pick up on the tree line in the neighborhood in which it resides in. So it was great for us to kind of see some of the material, also weigh some of the pros and cons, and we talked a little bit about pricing and the variation of some of our choices. But our team did a great job. We have various opinions, but I think we all kind of landed on some ideas that we liked that blend in with what we're trying to accomplish here in Portage.
Johnny, the projects for 16 that we're still trying to finish up, will there be enough money to do all those, you think?
From you mean the projects that I've listed here?
Right.
Yes, there will be enough money, and we'll talk a little bit about some funding ideas. When we met with our facilities committee, we also talked about how some of these projects can also be subsidized by our building site and sinking fund dollars if we choose to.
Okay.
So essentially, that's a creative way for us to.
So our goal is to go ahead with all those different things?
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Any other questions for the board?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks. A couple of other things I just want to bring to your attention. One is, the Michigan Department of Education has a technical assistance center, and that supports our multi-tiered systems of support that you've heard about on occasion. Well, that department, they give 2 awards on an annual basis. They do a MTSS Data Utilization Award, and another one for MTSS Implementation and Impact. And for the 21-22 school year, 2 of our schools were recognized for their data utilization. Those are some tongue twisters there. That's both Portage North Middle School and Portage West Middle School in the area of student behavior. So kudos to them and to Janine and her staff and their department that supports our MTSS program here. Also, just to give you a little bit of an update on where we stand enrollment-wise, and I'll try not to do this and throw too many numbers at you, but our count right now, as we approach our official count date, is 8,742 students. Those are students who are here in our district. We also serve an additional, let's say, I can tell you more closely, in our shared program, another between 93 and 100 students that we collect, not students, but FTEs that we collect in our shared time program. So that, when I refer to the 8,700 number, that does not include those numbers. So when you look at where we were pre-COVID, our high was in January of 2020, which was just before COVID hit. We were at 8,917. And a year later, we were 8,578. So that was a loss of 339 students from one year to the next. So that represents both our high and low enrollments over the, a period of time. So you can see where we're at now is at 8742. We've gained a good bit of those students back. It represents a 1% increase over what we had last year in the district.
Is the 8742 with the 90, or do we have to add the 92?
So the 90 is an FTE count.
Right.
The 8742 is not FTE, that's a head count.
Okay, so that 90 would be from the state's consideration, because we get paid for the FTEs.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So it would be.
I don't know how many students it represents because it's the students that attend.
Right, each student might be a half or a third or something.
It's usually like an hour or two maybe.
Okay, so it might not be, right.
So it's a combination of the schools at Hackett, St. Augustine, St. Michael,
Right.
St. Monica, and then
Right.
we serve one program in Kalamazoo, the Tree of Life. So those numbers combined are at that 93 mark right now.
Okay.
And what was the low, 85?
8578 was our lowest point in January of 21. So that was a year into COVID.
And what was the high number, 88?
8917.
8972. Okay.
So we're back at above the 17, 18 levels that the district is at. And our fluctuation, other than that loss where we lost students, has been in that 0.5% to 1% greater every year. So, and just in case you're interested, we have approximately almost 600 students this year that attend school here from under the Schools of Choice program, either 105 or as a non-resident from within Kalamazoo County. We typically, from the applications we get, we accept about 90% of the students who apply. The ones that don't get accepted typically are because of behavioral or attendance issues at their resident districts. So
And how does that compare to other years? Do you know?
it's a little higher than it has been. We've ranged from around 550 to now about 600. So it's and we expect that we'll have more between now and, well, at second semester we'll probably have some more requests coming in that we'll be processing.
So our number is up, and we budgeted our number to be down a little bit.
Yeah, Paula's not here this evening.
Right, but I know Paula budgeted for us to be.
She doesn't use this number specifically,
Right.
she uses the audited count numbers, which vary a little bit from this.
Right.
Because these head counts don't necessarily, all these students don't necessarily represent at 1.0 FTE, there may be some part-time students in this.
Right, I get it, it's just.
There's a lot of numbers that we
Right.
play with when we talk enrollment.
I remember when Paula gave out some numbers, I thought she was a little high, but it sounds like she's pretty much knows something.
Yeah, I mean, she has a number of sources that she uses, including these numbers that Janet Johnstone in the CIA office is responsible for, and so I think she's working on her data. Any other questions on enrollment? And the last thing, I just want to take a moment and remember one of our students who passed sadly at the beginning of the school year. Zenzia Bates was a 6-year-old first grader at Central Elementary School whose life was taken very shortly and abruptly. And just want to recognize her and add our own condolences to the family that remains. And also acknowledge our staff members, the crisis team in particular, who came to the aid of other students and other staff members at both Central Elementary School and the other buildings where siblings and cousins attended. So it's, an event like that has ramifications beyond just family. It affects a lot of people, staff and students, and we're fortunate to have a crisis response team and members that are truly interested in doing the hard work. They're trained to do that, and under some very difficult circumstances, including classroom teachers who, have to be in that room and see, the end result. So, again, our condolences to the family for their loss, and a thanks to our staff for supporting one another as we got through that. That's it.
Thank you for your report, Mark. We'll now move to our comments and communications section. Are there any comments by citizens this evening? Okay, we'll go to comments by board trustees. Does anyone have anything this evening?
I saw something on morning TV this morning that I just thought was pretty amazing, and certainly pertains to school. It was about a bus driver in Dallas, Texas, and the effect that this bus driver had on his bus of students. He gave every kid a job on the bus. He did things like did birthday gifts for kids, and just every day kids, some of them said that was the bright spot of their day, to be with the bus driver. And in fact, one child talked about his dad, who had walked out on their family when he was 4 years old, and said, "I wish my dad could have been more like my bus driver." So I just want to recognize that we've got a lot of employees in this district, and down to the bus drivers and the janitors and the cafeteria workers, these people have a huge impact on the kids, and we don't know who all those people are. So when you see them, say thank you. We need to appreciate that they're here working and they're pouring their hearts out to our kids. So if you have a chance to watch the clip, it was on CBS this morning.
And just adding that, the reality is that the first adult they see outside of their home is going to be that bus driver.
Yes.
So that's impactful.
And actually, the bus driver got a promotion.
Good.
So he now is in charge of training other bus drivers. So, it's good.
Thanks, Terry. Any other comments from trustees? I just want to mention I wasn't able to go to opening day for students, first day of class, but I did get to go to open house. And I've got grandkids in the elementary schools and the middle schools, and I'm telling you, it was really something. There were lines outside the school. People couldn't wait to get in. And no matter who you talked to, students, parents, or teachers, everybody was glad to be there, and everybody just seemed really energized for the new year. So that was a really pleasant, good thing to see. Are there any board committee reports? Well, I have one. As a number of people know, we've received a proposal to change the name of McCamley Field to Bob Knight Field to honor the late Portage Central football coach and his outstanding contributions to the Portage Central community. This is new for us because this is the first time the board has received a request to rename a facility. And our board, like other school boards, makes decisions based on its policies. So after review, we concluded that our current operations policy 7250, commemoration and naming of facilities, does not provide us with any guidance or a process for renaming a facility. So the board discussed the proposal at our last meeting on August 22nd, and since that time, the policy committee has met twice and developed a schedule that we believe will enable us to have a policy in place no later than November. The actions that we take in this matter will set a precedent for future requests, which means we need a policy and a process that will stand the test of time. Let the community know that we are committed to taking the time necessary to develop an appropriate policy while also committing to this schedule to complete the work. Board members are unanimous that Coach Knight and his outstanding contributions to the Portage Central community are worthy of recognition. Also want to add that we appreciate the time and effort that went into the proposal from the proposal committee, and we thank those members of that committee and their supporters for your patience as we move forward with our work. And I believe that's all we have in comments and communications. So we'll move to the consent agenda, please. On page 5, we have 2 items tonight, the August 22nd, 2022 regular business meeting minutes, and 2, that the Board of Education declare Randy Van Antwerp as its voting delegate and Keith Kroll as an alternate for the 2022 Michigan Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly. Are there any exceptions to the consent agenda as presented? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. And we'll move to assurance of district performance. That's on page 10, and our first monitoring report tonight is monitoring report 2.6, asset protection.
Thank you. Yes, this is begins another monitoring cycle of your policies. As Randy said, this is one 2.6, which is asset protection. My interpretation has remained unchanged from previous years, and the report has been updated. There's nothing in there that's new other than the updated information. I just want to point out a couple things that the energy management system that the district participates in. Since 2009, when that was first implemented, we've avoided $9.8 million in energy costs. So that's a lot of money that's
wow.
been able to go back into the classroom that otherwise wouldn't have. So thanks to Steve Phelps for overseeing that program. Also updated the information. To date, we've purchased 42 buses through our bond funds from 2016 and 19. So that is, I believe, pretty close unless the enhancement, I think the board approved a few additional buses that through the enhancement dollars. There may be more somewhere down the road, but that is yet to be played out. District facilities are, such a big part of the district, what we do, and we had quite a bit of a downturn in usage during COVID, some by our own making, because we just did not have, we did not have the staff to keep the buildings to the order that they needed to be in with as much community usage as we're used to. So we started easing up those restrictions during last school year, and we continue to see more and more requests as this year progresses. So I don't know what levels we'll get back to, but we're monitoring that closely and making sure that our community has access to our facilities. And then the only other, one other I just want to bring to your attention under 2.6.5 is I've updated the numbers there on the amount of purchased dollars that we do a much more in-depth look. I'm on page 17 of your agenda. It's 5 times the amount of the minimum bid threshold, which continues to increase every year. So this year it's just over $26,000. So your policy says that we let bids if it exceeds 5 times over that. So that new amount is about $130,000 right now that we scrutinize more carefully. And then this, I always find this last section I want to mention interesting is our interest income this year was a whopping $27,900, which is a yield of 0.07%. So, I think last year it was almost double that. So that's slipping. That's slipping, but we have no control over that. That's what those funds yield. So that's all I have, unless you have any other questions on the report.
That was also good news about the bus inspection. 100% of our buses receive the green tag. It's the highest rating you can get, so that's good. Kudos to the transportation department, for sure. Any questions from her? We have a motion to approve the monitoring report, please.
Sure, Mr. President. I'd like to make the motion the Board of Education accept monitoring report 2.6, asset protection as a reasonable interpretation and evidence of compliance with policy.
Thank you, Kurt. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Terry. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The monitoring report is approved. Our next monitoring report is monitoring report 2.10, communication and support to the board.
Again, the interpretations have remained the same. The data has just, some of the report data has been updated. A couple things I wanted to point out there is the issue of non-compliance. We've not had any non-compliance issues other than I noted that because of circumstances due to COVID, a lot of the data that we normally include in monitoring reports was not available to us this past year. I think we pointed that out as we presented those reports, a lot of the test data in particular. So hopefully this year, as we present reports, most of that data will be back in our hands. And then I always, kind of as I review the agendas from the past year in compiling this report, looking at the past 12 months, through board education, through reports and updates, or through discussion and action items, the board has dealt with over 20 different topics of, that would have different categories ranging from school safety to budget planning to our project enhancements, but a complete list of what I was able to see as different issues that the board had been dealing with is listed there for your understanding. And then there were two, this is one of those policies where there's two other reports that are buried in this report that are expected, and that's the monthly summary of financial performance, which is provided at the regular meeting every month where we have a regular meeting. And the timing is such that we can provide a monthly report. I think the 2 months we don't are maybe December and April, but the rest of the months you get a financial report, which is required by the board, and then an annual report on safety, which was presented during my evaluation this past summer. So that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Great report as usual, no surprises, we appreciate that. Any other questions for Mark? Okay, is there a motion, please, to approve the monitoring report?
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education accept the monitoring report 2.10, communication and support of the board as a reasonable interpretation and evidence of compliance with policy.
Thank you, Lois, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Terry, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes, the monitoring report is approved. We'll next go to our action item on page 34, and that's new teacher appointments. Is there a motion, please?
President Van Antwerp, I move that the Board of Education approve the following new teacher appointments. Allison Conroy, Candace Eby, Christopher Freiling, Kayla Fold, Stacy Hendershot, Lauren Ireland, Catherine Roten, Miriam Thielen.
Thank you, Terry. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Celeste. Brad?
Well, good evening, trustees. As I promised you last month, we had a few more teacher hires still to come, and pleased to bring all of these folks to you. These are mainly folks who are coming to replace folks we lost right at the end of the summer, either to other districts or in one case, leaving the profession altogether as well. So, and some internal shifts prompted our new school psychologist as well, coming actually back to Portage after being here many, many years ago as well. So all of them are up and running already, and happy to say that we have another good crop of people here.
So how many new teachers in total?
I believe we're at 44, I believe. And I have one opening, we did get a resignation from a teacher who wants to move into higher education and has an opportunity at Western Michigan University, so we will be filling that one. So there will be one more coming at some point once we fill that opening.
Is that a high school position?
It is a middle school position. So she's moving into student affairs at Western, so it was something she's wanted to do for a while.
And what subject does she teach now?
English and social studies is where we are there. Yeah.
Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of approving the new teacher appointments, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The new teacher appointments are approved. And And we'll go to our first discussion item, which is to approve some policy revisions. Mark?
Usually twice a year, we bring policy revisions to you. Most of these are rather simple and are really non-controversial at all. Some bylaw changes that just is mostly language changes. There is a new policy, 6108, that allows, it puts in place a policy that allows us to do electronic transfers internally. We typically don't do a lot of that, but in case we do, we need to have a policy in place for that. Vendor relations is a revision to a policy, and that's primarily to allow us to use a single vendor for things like, I mean, one that comes to mind is caps and gowns, where we use Johnston's, rather than having to give, allowing choices of vendor there, we identify the vendor. And I'm sure there are other situations similar to that, but it's for that. There's some technical language that on the Fair Labor Standards Act to align language with the new law. You can read more about that if you'd like to, but that's, again, non-controversial, it's something we have to do. And then also some changes made to the Sex Offender Registry Act that required us to make some policy revisions as well. So those are the ones we bring to you as a first reading. If anyone would care to see the entirety of the language changes, you're certainly welcome to come by the office and take a look at that and provide any input that you have. And just procedurally, I always meet, and other members of the staff as well, meet with our Neola representative, that's our policy language rep, and they do an explanation for us as to what the changes are. In a case like this, it's a rather quick meeting, but we do that as part of the process for approval.
Thank you, Mark. Our next discussion item is to approve the VDI server expansion. Dan?
Couple of server purchases tonight. First one is for VDI, or Virtual Desktop Interface. This is a group of servers in our data center that provide computing resources to our staff and students. Initially, we used this array to provide outside access for staff to materials and resources that they could get access to if they were not actually on site. But now we've deployed Chromebooks to all of our students. We've begun to use the array to offer up high-power applications such as Photoshop, CAD, CAM to our students in lieu of purchasing expensive desktop machines that live in one physical place. This effectively lets us turn our Chromebooks into a remote keyboard, mouse, and screen so they can have all the power wherever they are, but not have to be carrying a high-powered device to do that. This expansion was planned. We were looking to do this next summer as the demand grows, but it turns out this technology qualifies for ESSER funds, and those have to be spent by the end of this calendar year. So we're adjusting this purchase forward in the calendar to take advantage of that funding opportunity. I am asking that the board move this to action tonight. These kind of servers are in short supply, but Dell, the providing vendor, has agreed to put us towards the top of the list, which gives us a very, very good chance of having this appliance, or these additional appliances rather, in place by the end of this calendar year. The total amount for this cluster addition is just a little over $131,000, as indicated in the memo in front of you. With that, I would be happy to take any questions the board might have.
And how much of that would come from the ESSER funds?
All of it would
All
come
of it,
from
okay,
ESSER.
that's probably here.
So are these at different locations, or are they all, where is this all housed?
This is all housed in our data center, but it can be accessed from literally anywhere in the world.
Right? So,
Yeah.
because we ordered 4, I didn't know if you had them strategically located in different places.
Each one of the servers can host roughly 30 students at a time. So we're looking at an expansion of about 120 concurrent licenses. But not all 120, students are gonna, shuffle in and out for when they're gonna use them. So we're just looking to not necessarily have a license for every student, but rather have enough to cover the ebbs and flows and the concurrent needs.
And did you say 30 students at a time?
roughly 30 per server cluster. And there are 4 included in this purchase.
Are we advised to take this to action? Great, can we have a motion to move into action, please?
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education move the EDI server expansion discussion item to action.
Thank you, Bo. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion, all opposed? The motion is approved. We'll move this item to action. Is there a motion to approve, please?
President Van Antwerp, I move that the Board of Education authorize the purchase of 4 additional cores for a VDI cluster in an amount not to exceed $131,299.52, the funds for which will be drawn from the ESSER grant.
Thank you, Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Celeste. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes and the VDI server expansion is approved. Our next discussion item is to approve the surveillance server replacement.
All right, for the second group of servers tonight, this will go to our surveillance system. This is the 3rd step in a 3-step process to upgrade surveillance throughout the district. If the board will recall, you've already approved cameras and you've already approved the switchgear required to drive those cameras. This is the last step to give us the server horsepower that we need to do this work. Basically, what we've seen happen with surveillance, Portage is nearing about 500 cameras, and by the time we finish, the new elementary schools will have even more. But as part of this upgrade, we've moved these cameras from standard definition to high definition. So each camera generates roughly 4 times as much data as the camera that it replaced. So if you can imagine trying to stream 500 high definition channels in your home all at the same time, there's some hardware that has to go there. And while our servers have the data bandwidth and they have the storage, what we're finding is that the CPUs inside the servers don't have the computing power to handle all the video streams. These servers specialize in video processing, and their job will be to intake all those video streams, compress them, and store them for use at a later date. These servers are being purchased off of the state bid list, so no RFP was required. Total amount, again, coming from Dell, $141,000 and change. Initially, we had looked to purchase all of these surveillance enhancements through the 2019 bond enhancement fund, the remaining funds that were available. I still need to sit down with Johnny and Paul to see how many of those funds are left. But in the case that we don't have enough of those funds to cover this purchase, I'm prepared to make a budget allocation in the 2021 bond to cover the difference as needed. This is another item that I would ask for the board to move on tonight if you're so willing, if only because the buildings are very eager to get their surveillance systems up to 100%. And with that, I will take any questions the board may have.
This is a good thing. Any questions for Dan? Okay, is there a motion to move this item to action?
Sure, Mr. President, I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Education move the surveillance server replacement discussion item to action.
Thank you, Kurt. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Keith. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. This is now an action item. Is there a motion to approve?
Sure, Mr. President, I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Education authorize the purchase of 6 servers for our surveillance system from Dell Computer to an amount not to exceed $141,507.96, the funds for which will be drawn from the 2019 bond supplemental fund or the 2021 bond insurance as appropriate or available.
Thank you, Kurt. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Celeste. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes and the surveillance server replacement is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Our last discussion item this evening is to approve the purchase of custodial equipment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am recommending that the Board of Education approve the purchase of some custodial cleaning equipment from the WW Granger Incorporated with a total purchase price of $46,239.10. This would also come from our ESSER supplemental budget, and as Dan has already suggested that these funds must be spent prior to the end of this calendar year. So the equipment that we are looking to use will be shared throughout the district. And in some cases, the equipment would replace outdated units. In other cases, this equipment would be in addition to our existing equipment. Given the square footage of carpet within our school district, the portable carpet spotters will allow our custodial team to address spills and stains throughout the school day before they settle into the carpet. The scrubbers that are also on here will be essential during our breaks, in which our custodial team is able to do what we would consider to be our deep cleaning. This purchase is being made using the State of Michigan cooperative contract with W.W. Granger Incorporated. As such, no RFP was required. So I would be happy to answer any questions about this recommendation of the board.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. We've reached the end of our agenda. Please be sure and turn in your assessment of the meeting and your monitoring report evaluations. And with that,